All right, so again, yeah, I'm Ramsey Coulter, Coulter Credit Counseling. Do credit repair, credit education. We do business credit education and business funding. So 90% of people, consumers do not even know that there's a difference between the business credit and your personal credit. Business credit is completely separate from your personal credit, and most businesses might think that they have personal credit, business cards, but in reality what they have is a personal credit card with the name of their business on it, which only reports to the consumer credit reports and not your business credit reports. So if you want to learn more about business credit, you can call me and I can talk about that. It's a completely different process. So a lot of people want to know, how did I get into credit repair? So I got into credit repair when I was in college. I was playing football at Westchester University and I got injured and I had to have surgery. And when you're injured on school property, any bills should be covered by the school. But turns out that didn't happen. A couple of the bills fell through the cracks and ended up on my personal credit. So I got an email alert from Credit Karma. I had a free credit account with Credit Karma, and it said there's a new collection on your credit report. And I was like, I don't know how this is possible because I've never not paid a bill. I just graduated college. I didn't have any outstanding debts besides student loans, and I was just about to start paying on them. So needless to say, I wasn't happy, but I figured, hey, I'll just contact the school. They'll get it taken care of. Should be a nice, quick process. But that was not anything close to the truth. It took me almost a year to get the medical collections off my credit report. I had to do all the work. I had to call the school. I had to call my dad's insurance. I had to call the school's insurance. I had to call the debt collector. And I had to call the hospital. And it was not fun at all. I had to do all the work. Nope, they didn't care. They were on my credit. There was nothing I could do about it. So during that time, like I said, I was not happy. So I was like, well, how is this legal? So I started researching, looking into all the consumer laws. I started listening to seminars from lawyers, from paralegals, from credit repair experts, talking about your consumer rights, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And I just really wanted to know, how was it legal that they could show up on my credit report when I wasn't legally liable for the debt? So I literally listened to hundreds of hours of these seminars, and I called a lot of lawyers, talked to a lot of local attorneys, and I figured out two things. One, most lawyers don't know anything about the consumer protection laws. You have to find a lawyer who specializes in it. And so after talking to about 5 or 6 lawyers, one of them did know, but she was just like, yeah, there's really not much you can do at this point. You went to the hospital, you signed that you would take care of any bills. They forced me to sign so I could have surgery. And so I couldn't do anything about it, but I was still not happy at all. So finally, the bill got paid from the insurance company 10 months later. And so I was like, all right, great. Called up the debt collector. I was like, look, hospital got their money. You're going to get rid of this now. It's going to come off my credit, right? You're paid. And they said, nope. I was like, what do you mean, nope? She was like, the lady on the phone said, well, we're just going to list it as a paid collection on your credit report. Well, a paid collection, I didn't necessarily know it at the time. I just knew that that wasn't acceptable. But a paid collection has the same negative effect as an unpaid collection on your credit report. It makes no difference. A lot of people think that there is, because if you're applying for a mortgage, they're going to say you have to take care of any unpaid debts for the most part. That's just for their underwriting process. It doesn't improve your score, and actually paying off some debts can decrease your credit score if you don't have it completely removed from the file. And sometimes they won't remove it from the file at all, and they don't have to by law, but they also by law don't have to keep it on your credit. That's just their choice, to damage your credit. So I hung up with the debt collector because it was pointless to talk to them. They weren't necessarily rude to me, but they weren't helpful, and they didn't care. They were like, well, it's your own problem. So I called up the guy I'd been talking to at the hospital, the director of the collections department, and basically I said, well, I was talking to my counsel, and they advised me that we would actually just have to sue you guys because you guys are the ones who gave the debt collectors permission to show up on my credit report. And so he said, okay, well, let me talk to my supervisor. And about 15 minutes later, I got an email saying my supervisor said we'll remove the collection from your credit report. It can take 30 to 60 days to get removed. And yeah, the next day it was completely off all 3 credit bureaus. Magic, huh? 30 to 60 days. Less than 24 hours it was gone. That's what happens when you threaten with lawsuits. So that's how I got into it. And then I started helping a lot of friends and family with the process. Just kept building my experience, kept listening to more and more seminars. At the time I had worked doing Medicaid and Medicare reviews and appeals, appealing the amounts to administrative law judges. So I sat on a computer all day and I could listen while I was working all day long, and it paid off. So I started doing it part-time for about a year and a half, helping friends and family, and tons of people started calling me. And then I was getting sick of my job working in corporate America, working for Medicaid and Medicare. And it was perfect timing because in that October before that, they started implementing all the Affordable Health Care Acts. So that initiated a ton of layoffs at my company. So there was 5 total layoffs. They did one every few months, layoff, layoff, layoff. And right about in April, I was going to get my last bonus check from them because they said, you're no longer getting bonus checks. I said, all right, I'm going to have to be out of here. I can't do this. I was only there for bonus checks because my productivity was a 5 out of 5. And that's what made it worth it. But so they said, all right, look, they told us in December, no more bonus checks, you get one more in April, and then that's it. And I said, all right, great. In April, I'm quitting. But it was perfect timing because actually they laid me off right when I got my last bonus check, right 4 days before I was going to call and quit. So it worked out pretty great. I got a nice little severance package, and it forced me to do credit repair full time, which was awesome because I enjoy doing it. I enjoy helping people. And it's very rewarding helping people get into cars, into apartments, get into homes. It's very, very rewarding. So that's how I got into credit repair. So everybody should have it. There's a handout. If you don't have one, there's some outside or on the seats next to you. It's called the FICO Scores Decoded. So what is FICO? FICO stands for Fair Isaac and Company. It's the main credit model used by the top 90% of lenders in America to determine if you can be approved for credit or not. So while there are hundreds of different credit scores, people think there's one credit score or one credit score for each bureau. That's not true at all. You have hundreds of credit scores. So when people say, oh yeah, I know my credit score, it's a 580, well, where did you get that information from and when did you check it? Because your credit score can change every single day. If you use your credit card, it can change. It depends when they update it with the credit bureaus. So pretty much nobody ever knows what their credit score is because it changes. So FICO score is the main one used. That's the most important one. So we're going to go over that in detail about your FICO credit score. So payment history is the biggest portion of your FICO credit score. 35% of your credit score is made up of do you pay your open bills on time. Okay, so let me clarify that. People think, oh, I paid all my bills, my whole life. I must have great credit. I pay electric on time, I pay cable on time, I pay my phone bill on time, I pay my rent on time, I pay my car insurance on time. Guess what? None of that stuff I just said, none of that shows on your credit until you don't pay it. Then it shows up on your credit and hurts your credit. So payment history is only accounts that show up on your credit report, which are open credit cards, open car loans, open mortgages, personal loans, student loans. That's the type of stuff that shows up on your personal credit. So 35% is the biggest chunk is payment history. So if you miss a payment, that can have a big negative impact. One missed payment can drop somebody over 50 plus points. One missed payment. And it takes about 2 years to make up for that until it essentially doesn't have an effect. It still will have a little bit of an effect, but as time goes on, your score will increase. And so the second part is, so let me go back to payment history. So for payment history, so a creditor cannot report that you are late on your credit report until you are at least over 30 days late. Okay? So if you're behind on your credit card or your car bill by 2 weeks or even 29 days, you're still fine. You'll still have a late fee from the creditor. They can charge you a late fee. If you call them, ask them, hey, sorry I missed my payment. Can you please remove the late fee? $35, $25? They pretty much always will. At least 1 or 2 times a year. They always say, oh, well, as a one-time courtesy, we'll remove this late payment. Well, guess what? I've had people do it 4 times in 1 year. So if you ever do miss a payment, just call them. Say you're sorry you missed the payment. I'm going to pay you right now, or I'll pay you in a couple weeks. Can you please remove the late fee? They usually will. And as long as you're not 30 days late, it's not going to ding on your credit, okay? And things like electric, there's only like $1 some fee for being late. You can be 2-3 months behind. They're not going to shut off your electric, especially in Pennsylvania in the wintertime. They can't legally. I don't suggest it, but they're not going to shut it off for a while. And same with Comcast and stuff. The most important thing is to pay your open accounts that are on your credit on time. Obviously, the most important thing is to put food on the table and to pay your rent and pay your electric bill. But then you want to take care of all your credit cards, open car loans, open mortgages. And you want to make sure you're not more than 30 days late, because that will have the biggest negative impact on your credit. So the second portion of your FICO credit score is the percentage of credit card use, or they call it credit utilization. So that accounts for 30% of your credit score. So what that means is, it doesn't mean anything about mortgages, doesn't mean anything about, it's pretty much about your credit card usage. So if you have no credit cards, you automatically are missing 30% of your credit score. So a lot of people don't have open credit cards. They're, oh, I'm scared to get a credit card, or I had one a couple years ago, I didn't pay it, destroyed my credit. The only way to fix that is to open up a new credit card and start making on-time payments, okay? Now people are like, well, I applied for a credit card, I can't get approved. Okay, so what you have to do is you can go to your bank, or if you don't have a bank, you can use Capital One online, or there are plenty of other cards online that you can use where you have to pay for your, so you would give them, it's called a secured credit card. So you pay them, depending on your credit, they might charge you $200, they might charge you $300, depends on the bank, depends on how bad your credit is. And you give them $300 as the norm, and they in turn will hold on to that $300 and give you a credit card. That's the way you have to get your first credit card if you've never had credit or if you have bad credit. That's how you have to do it. There's pretty much no way around it unless you have a family member who will add you to one of their credit cards. Now, you want to make sure they're not missing payments. You want to make sure their credit card's not maxed out, because then it's going to show up on your credit. They have to be family members, so a couple things have to match. Last name usually, if you have a maiden name or a married name, as long as you can show, hey, we both live at this address together, or we used to live here and they still live there, they'll allow it to show up on your credit. But so many people used to do piggybacking that they essentially made it so that doesn't really work anymore. Okay, so it has to be a family member, and that's a great way to help your credit tremendously. If you have a family member who has a $5,000, $10,000 credit card, and they can add you as an authorized user, and they don't max it out, and they made their payments on time, they've had it open for 10 years, it's a great way to show, it shows up on your credit like you've had that card open for 10 years. Now it says authorized user, but it still helps your credit tremendously. So that's another way, and then you could open up a small credit card in your name. But usually you have to do a secured credit card, okay? So, all right, so the third part of your FICO credit score is the length of your credit history. So what I was just talking about, if somebody can add you to an account, you're gonna get 15%. Your credit history, if their account's been open for 10 years, it's gonna jump your score up tremendously. So the only other way to do that is to have open credit card for 5, 8 years, because they want you to have open credit for 8 years for it to get that full 15%. But here's the thing. All right, you opened up a credit card 10 years ago, haven't opened up anything else. Now you open up a credit account right now. Well, now your average age of accounts just dropped by 5 years. Okay? So every time you open a new account, your average age drops. Now your length of credit history still stays the same, but they like to see your average age be over 8 years, which is very long, especially for somebody who's trying to build credit. So 10% of your FICO credit score is a healthy mix of credit accounts. So what that means is if somebody has 4 credit cards, or all credit cards, that's not a good thing. It's okay, as long as you're paying them on time and not maxing them out, and maybe if they've been open for a long time, fine. But you need to have different types of accounts. They like to see diversity of accounts. So they like to see personal loans. They like to see mortgages. They like to see auto loans, credit cards. They like to see diversity. So usually one of the first things for people building credit is I'll tell them, go to the local credit union. There's Citadel right down the road. There's Franklin Mint Federal Credit Union, which is located in Downingtown, right next to DSW and GameStop and the movie theater there. Okay? Franklin Mint has a program where if you have no credit, even if you have some collection accounts, they'll give you a $300 loan, unsecured loan. Most banks don't do that. TD Bank, Wells Fargo, they don't do that at all. They'll do some secured stuff, but oh yeah, a secured credit card or a secured loan, give us $2,000 and we'll give you a loan for $2,000. Well, I don't have $2,000, that's why I need your help. So you can go to the credit union, and if you don't get approved for the $300 loan from Franklin Mint, I don't think Citadel does that, but you can give Citadel $300 or $500, and then they'll give you a loan. The whole point is not because you need your own $500, it's to show up on your credit and start building your credit. So you go down with $500, give it to Citadel, they, the next day or the same day, say, hey, you were approved, you can go pick up your loan for $500, and then you take that $500 and you say, okay, great, here's $500, now I want a secured credit card. Okay, so now you have an open credit card and you have an open personal loan. Diversity of accounts, right? And then you obviously have to pay them on time. It's always best just to set it up for direct withdrawal every month. It's only going to be about $30 to $50. If you can, just put the money right into your savings account so you don't blow through it unless you need to, if you can come up with it again. And that will help you a lot. So a lot of times people will ask me, oh, can you get inquiries removed? So inquiries is the last portion. 10% is accumulation of new debt. So inquiries, whenever you apply for a credit card or any type of credit, even that includes Verizon, Comcast, AT&T sometimes, most times, cell phone providers are going to pull your credit these days. If you apply for an apartment, they're going to pull your credit. They apply for a mortgage. Now, if you have an inquiry, one a month, it's not a terrible thing. I don't recommend it. The less is the better. But some people will come to me and say, I just went to the car dealership. They pulled my credit 10 times. I have terrible credit now. It just dropped 100 points. Well, that's not the reason it dropped 100 points, because it only accounts for 10% of your score. Okay, so it can't make that big of a difference. Okay, if you had 100, now you have a 90. But if you had a 50, now you have a 40, But you have a shopping window for homes and for car loans. You have 30 days. You can apply for as many times as you want. It's not recommended, but you can, because they know that mortgage companies and car dealerships especially will pull your credit. You go into the car dealership, you think, hey, they're going to pull my credit one time. I give them permission one time. When you come out, 10 credit inquiries. I was helping my friend get a car, one of my first clients, and we took him down to Toyota down the road, and I was talking to the car dealer, the salesman. I was like, so do you guys pull his credit like 10 times? He's like, oh, no, we just pull it one time. I was like, oh, really? You sure about that? He's like, yeah, we just pull it one time. All right. Next day, I checked his credit and pulled it 8 times. It's not a huge deal. He got the car, so he's fine now, so he doesn't need to apply for anything else. But these are the things they don't tell you, So those are the 5 factors for your FICO credit score, okay? Now, like I was saying, you have hundreds of different credit scores, okay? You have a FICO credit score, which is primarily used. 90% of lenders use your FICO credit score. There's also what is called the Vantage credit score, which was created by the credit bureaus to kind of compete with the FICO score. Although FICO's been around since, what, the 70s? Vantage just came around a few years ago. I believe they did it just to trick people, because anytime you go on a website, free credit report, free credit score, Credit Karma is great, but don't look at the score. It gives you a ballpark, but it can be off by 100 points. The Vantage score goes up to 950 points when your FICO score goes up to 850. So it's confusing. You think you have a great credit score, then you go apply for a mortgage. Well, Credit Karma said I have a 750. Excellent, that's excellent on this. Well, really, you have a 640. And people are like, well, what do you mean? If you want to know your legitimate FICO credit score, first of all, you're never going to know which FICO score, okay? You're going to get your generic FICO score. You can go to myfico.com. You can pay them $40 a month, which is a little steep. There are other websites out there. I'm an affiliate with a company called Identity IQ, where since I'm a credit repair company, I send a lot of clients to them. So instead of $30 a month, if you sign up through me, then it's $20 a month. So saves you a little bit of money. If you're really serious about buying a home, buying a car, you need to pay. Even if it's just for 2 or 3 months. Come up with the $20 so you know what your score is. So you don't go into the mortgage guy and just be like, I think it's better now. I paid some bills, and then it's not. Okay? It's not only frustrating for the mortgage person, it's frustrating for you because you have to keep going in thinking you're ready and you're not. And if people ask me all the time, hey, you got all this stuff off my credit. What's my credit score? I don't know. Are you paying to see what your credit score is? Most of the time, no. Yes, you can use Credit Karma to see the content. The information is 100% accurate on Credit Karma. They update every week. As soon as an account's removed, it comes right off within a week. So content-wise, it's great. Absolutely great. And that's why I recommend some people use it. And then send me your information. I can jump on, do a free consultation. Hey, look, you have these negative accounts. I can help you get these removed. You know, you might have to pay some of these. It just depends on the account, depends on how old it is. So, okay, there we go, age. So negative information can remain on your credit report for 7 years, except tax liens and bankruptcies. They can stay on your credit report for 10 years, okay? But just because they can remain for 7 years, like I said, there's no law that says that they have to. They don't have to stay on there. And you can challenge the validity of those. A lot of times, okay, according to the FTC, 70% of credit reports have errors. 70%. 7 out of 10 have some sort of error. Now that could just be, oh, my brother's name's on my report, or I'm a junior, my father's name's on the report, or my cousin, or some random person's name's on my report, random address, phone number. That stuff doesn't matter. That's not calculated into your score, although it could be a factor for identity theft, so it's not good to have a huge list of addresses on your credit report. So I dispute all old addresses. There's no need to have 15 different addresses and 20 different phone numbers taking up space on your credit report. We want it to look nice and clean when you go apply for a mortgage. We don't need 38 pages, So, and of that 70%, 25% have negative information that will stop you from getting approved. So I've seen a bankruptcy on a client's credit report. I was only on one of his reports, but guess what? Good thing he came to me first. If he would have applied for a mortgage or a car loan, well, he still could have got a car loan with a bankruptcy, but it would have hurt his interest rate. It was not his. We called up the court for thonotary and said, whose information is this? And they said, here's the last 4 of the social. Well, that's not my client's. What's the name? It's not even close. It wasn't even close. It wasn't his. We disputed it. Credit bureaus removed it. Okay, awesome. A lot of times with juniors and seniors, huge chance for mix-ups. And sometimes they won't remove it. They'll say, nope, you're Michael Jr., that's your account, when really it was Michael Sr.'s. Well, if you dispute it with the credit bureaus, nothing happens. They don't remove it. You dispute it again, sometimes nothing happens. They don't remove it, or maybe 2 of the credit bureaus remove it. But Experian, they don't want to remove it. They said, no, this is yours. We verified it. We checked with the original creditor. Okay. Well, then that's when you need a lawyer because, yeah, it's not yours, and you know it's not yours. It's your father's or somebody else's. Then you can hire an attorney at no cost to you, usually, depending on the case. If they've violated your rights, they have to pay for the lawyer's fees. They have to pay for court costs, and then they have to pay you for your damages. Okay? And your damages could be very, very high if you're applying for a mortgage and there's false information on your report, because now you just got denied a $300,000 loan because of false information. That's a big deal, okay? So, all right, does anybody have any questions about anything? I know I just went over everything really quickly. Is there any questions at all about anything on your credit report? Does anybody in here use a credit monitoring website, such as Credit Karma, or pay for a credit monitoring? Yeah? Okay, good. So like I said, don't get tricked into thinking that's your credit score, okay? Your FICO score is completely different, and like I said, you have hundreds of FICO scores. You have 49 different FICO scores alone. 49. They have a mortgage industry FICO score. They have an auto industry FICO score. They have a generic FICO score. They have a score based on whether you'll respond to mailers. They have a score for everything. They have a bank score. If you've ever bounced a check, somebody tried to pull out funds, NSF, non-sufficient funds, that'll hurt your bank score, which doesn't necessarily matter for your consumer credit, but if you want to apply for mortgages or your business credit, it can have a big negative impact to have a bad bank score. So like I said, there's hundreds of different scores, and anytime there's false information, yep.
Why do you, say for instance, car loans, when you go and apply for an auto loan? All these banks, they all pull your credit, but all they look at is your score.
Yep.
None of them pay any attention to what type of credit you have or your payment history or anything like that. They're just more focused just on the score. So like my daughter, for instance, she's 19. She has one credit card that she just opened, and that's it. Her credit score is 790. She got approved, and
Right.
they didn't even look at her credit history.
Well, they do. When they pull your credit score, all these factors that I just went over, that's factored in. That's all the math, it's the algorithm that goes into it. So whoever's pulling the score doesn't have to be that smart. They can just read, okay, this is your score, this is what we got you approved for. The computer did it. They didn't sit there and calculate your credit score. They didn't go over it. The computer does it right away. So, and like I just said, so for those different types of scores, different things are weighed differently. So for an auto industry score, when you go to apply for an auto loan, they weigh heavily on previous auto payments. So if you've never had one, yeah, you have a little bit worse score, but that's okay. So you said she's 19 and she has a 790?
19. She just opened a Discover card and a Kohl's card. She's had it for maybe 6 months. Her credit score is well over 700 and something.
Right.
And she got approved for a 4% loan by herself.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully she can afford those payments every month for the next 5 or 6 years.
Right.
That's the main thing. People will go, and when you go to a car dealership, and I've experienced it, and I've been with clients at the car dealership, not too often, I don't go with everybody, but I've gone, and they just want you to buy the brand new cars, okay? My friend, he wanted to buy a $10,000 car. Well, he ended up getting a brand new Toyota Camry. They talked him into it. They were saying, well, you can't get approved for this. It has to be a 2008 or newer with less than 100,000 miles. But then you have a $30,000 car loan that you're stuck with for 5 to 7 years, depending on how long you're. Do you know how much money you're going to be making next year? Do you know if you're going to have a kid next year? Do you know if you're going to lose your job next year? Do you know if you're going to get sick next year? Nobody knows these things. It's not smart to take on a huge loan like that. If you want to get a car, it's better just to get a used car. You can find one that's just at 99,000 miles just so you can get approved. But yeah, that's awesome. She has over 700. So that's a good point. So she's had it for at least 6 months, because in order to generate a FICO credit score, you have to have credit for over 6 months. Okay? Most people don't realize that. They say, all right, well, that's if you've had no credit in the past. Like she had no credit. She was 19. She just opened up those accounts this year or whatever for 6 months. now she had a great credit score. She never missed a payment, used them, paid them off, used them, paid them off. Well, her trend for the past 6 months has been great. So they gave her a great score. And then they gave her a great interest rate. So hopefully she can continue to make those payments. And right. Well, for federal student loans, they pretty much approve anybody for the certain amount per year. But then if you need more, which most colleges you do, then you have to get private student loans or a Parent Plus loan or a cosigner, which is very dangerous to cosign for people, even your kids, because if they don't pay for the debt, then you have to. And if you don't pay for it, it destroys your credit and their credit, or your brother or your cousin or your friend, who I've seen tons and tons of times. People call me, oh, I have 4 car loans. Well, only one of them's mine, but I got one for my buddy, and I got one for them. Well, that was your decision. You had good enough credit then, now you don't. And now you can't buy a home because of their bad mistakes. So whenever you're going to co-sign for something, I'm not saying don't do it, okay? You need to be careful. You need to be very careful. Okay, maybe if it's like a $3,000 loan, you can take care of it yourself. Whenever you're going to co-sign, you need to make sure you can pay for it yourself, because you can't rely on them, because you never know what's going to happen. But is there any other questions?
Yeah.
Yep.
How long do the inquiries stay on your?
Good question. So it said how long do inquiries remain on your credit report? For 2 years, they remain on your credit report, but they only matter for 1. After 12 months, doesn't have a negative impact. That 10% score doesn't affect it. So 2 years it remains, only affects your credit score for 1. So, very good question. And a lot of people call me and complain about inquiries. That's usually not the issue, okay? It's 10% of your credit score. There's other things you need to work on, like opening a credit card. Any other questions?